Throughout the entirety of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Hirohiko Araki has written characters that travel all over the entire world, whether it be an American-focused part, a European-focused part, or an Asian-focused part. The journey of these characters allows them to see the world in such a beautiful, lush way, allowing the readers to experience it in a similar way as well. But at this point, with Part 9, I'm a bit conflicted. Are we going to travel to Papua New Guinea to see where the Rokakaka came from, or are we going to travel to Scotland like this interview with Araki stated? Having never been to Northern Europe, I'd be interested in going there, as well as places that have a bit of lonely feel to them, like the Scottish Highlands. Why exactly would Scotland be a good place for JoJo to go in the future? Would it be a possible journey from Japan all the way to Scotland, similar to how Part 3 was a journey from Japan all the way to Egypt? I think this has a lot of potential for storytelling, and especially so with the themes I think Part 9 is going to go with. So this is my genuine prediction on what I think Part 9 could be about, why it being in Scotland would be plausible and cool for the story progression as a whole, and how it encompasses the entirety of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure as a whole. So with that, I hope you enjoy. And if you enjoy this, consider supporting the channel, because I'll definitely be talking about Part 9 every time a chapter releases. Ever since Araki has started the Steel Ball Run universe, he's had a fixation on ensuring that the geography of the locations or characters visit is integral to the plot in some form or fashion. I thought that this Scotland sort of concept could allow for this very, very easily with Fingal's Cave, which looks incredibly strange compared to every other cave I've ever seen personally, with a very cubism-like structure that could be integral to the rock humans' importance in the world, and possibly where they even came from originally, which would be really cool in my opinion, and the Corryvreckan Whirlpool, which is the third largest whirlpool in the entire world, and could be a cool place for our protagonist to learn about spin in a more concrete way, with it literally being a whirlpool. This could be the excuse for the gyro surrogate Jobro to tell our main heroes about spin. Now, with the rock humans being an obvious parallel to the Pillarmen from Battle Tendency, and this part possibly taking place in Europe, I definitely think a lot of the things Battle Tendency introduced, along with Phantom Blood, could be reincorporated into the story in a very interesting way, with this idea of the rock humans possibly being more important with the illusions that they've been around for so much longer than we've ever experienced before. I think it's definitely possible we learn the true origins of the rock humans in this part. And if that is the case, I definitely think we're going to get some callbacks to the Pillarmen in some fashion, with Joseph Joestar obviously being the ancestor of the JoJo that is going to play a major role in this part. I think it'd be a cool way to tie more Joseph origin into this part, even though it is a different Joseph, to be fair. Now for Part 9, Araki said that he wanted to travel to places with a significantly lonelier feeling to them in setting, and I think this could be really interesting when we apply some of the more contemporary theories on who could be the main characters to this setting. If they are trying to go with this lonely feel, it might not actually have Josuke and Yasuo like many people believe. The romance aspect between Josuke and Yasuo was clearly one of the most important parts in JoJolion, and I think that Araki wants to do something completely different for Part 9, since he's focusing specifically on the aspect of loneliness rather than companionship like he did in JoJolion. Like I said in my last JoJo Lands video, I definitely think the theme of duality is going to be important, due to the way Araki used colors in specific, and the focus on loneliness. But this has me wondering, how exactly is he going to portray this loneliness? Is it going to be possible that we have a couple very similar to Josuke and Yasuo as our main dynamic? However, instead of a feeling of trust and companionship, it could be cool because their points of views can be severely different from one another and only thinking to themselves without having to interact with a ton of external characters outside of the main cast, which would be very small in the first place. And I think this would be only amplified by the setting being very barren and empty, aside from nature and rocks. Now, does that mean I think that Josuke and Yasuo won't play a single role in Part 9? No. Araki's been pretty consistent with keeping Steel Ball Run and JoJolion very in tune with one another, with literally one of the ancestors from Steel Ball Run being present in JoJolion, with Norisuke Higashikata number 4 being a descendant of Norisuke Higashikata number 1. You know, it's pretty cut and dry right there. Araki's also done this with the original universe by having characters consistently show up and be important, specifically most of the Stardust Crusaders and even Koichi in Part 5. Now, I know I explained some stuff with the rock humans and spin and how that can be incorporated into the story, but why do I think Scotland would be a perfect place for the story to end as a whole? Because it's very likely this is the final part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So why do I think that this part in particular should end on Scotland? Well, I think it would be a great way to summarize every other part of the story into one significant section. Now, the absolute main reason that I want our main characters to travel to Europe, and specifically Scotland and England, is because it would tie all the way back to the beginning of the story with Phantom Blood. And the reason I think this is definitely possible to happen is because this part is more likely than not going to be a parallel to part 6, seeing that part 7 was parts 1, 2, and 3, and part 8 was 4 and 5 in my opinion. I think that part 9 being a parallel to part 6, literally having the numbers, inverse one another, would be perfect because it would be able to get us to one specific location that would be more important than anything else in the world. Part 6 obviously had Cape Canaveral because the gravity was lower there and that's why the rockets were launched there, and it makes sense for the villain's plan. But for part 9, I think that this location that'll be so important isn't just going to be the location where the rock humans were from, maybe even the place where the Lokakaka was made. I think the main reason we're going to be heading to Scotland and England is because the location that is most important in the world is going to be the location where the Joestar Mansion was in another universe. And this will be the center point for the main final battle of this entire part. Now I know a lot of you might be thinking, Kevin, you're going absolutely crazy right now. What on earth are you talking about? And is Araki really going to do another universe reset thing again? JoJo's has had a trend to have trilogies end off on something really grand and spectacular. For example, the Stone Mask trilogy starts with Jonathan vs. Dio and ends with Jotaro vs. Dio, succinctly ending this entire saga. The Stand Arrow trilogy slowly procedurally creates people that can make stands on their own, leading up to the most insane thing, which is Pucci getting his own stand and completely changing the universe as a whole. And it reincorporates Dio, making it not only a fitting conclusion from parts 4 to 6, but 1 to 6. I think this will happen the exact same way with the Holy Corpse trilogy, which is what I'm going to call the 7 to 9 parts. And I think that part 9 is going to be great for parts 7 to 9, but also parts 1 to 9, and specifically with this reincorporation of Phantom Blood, it will allow fans of the series who have experienced it from beginning to end to get a really satisfying conclusion to the series we've grown to love for such a long time. And with the return of all this stuff from super early JoJo, and with Scotland's tendency to have fairy tales and cryptids around, it might be even possible to have aliens and ghosts, things Araki has sort of speculated on, return to the story as well. Who knows, maybe with this sort of idea, Araki might even turn the Loch Ness Monster into a stand of some kind. Kind of similar to Superfly, where it's part of the environment itself and kind of contains the user into a specific area. I think that would be pretty cool, and it seems like something Araki would absolutely do for a Rohan one-shot, which is what I personally think his writing style will be alluding a lot to in part 9, since he's been doing a lot more of these Rohan one-shots that are more individualistic and surreal in a way. I think it would be a really cool way to sort of foreshadow what part 9 is going to be like. And with that, those are really all my thoughts on this Scotland JoJo theory I have. So with the rock humans being parallels to the Pillar Men, the ideas of spin and rocks being very necessary to Scottish geography, Araki having a fixation on Scotland years in the past, and the idea that this part, being an odd numbered part, could more likely than not be a long journey section, I think it would be really interesting to see the main cast of characters go on a journey that could be from Japan all the way to England, showing a really cool way to show that the series is all the way in Japan right now, and we're traveling all the way back to where the series began, in England with Phantom Blood. I think genuinely that would be a pretty cool way to go full circle with this entire thing, and turning the Joestar Mansion into the central point that we must go to, even though this is an alternate universe, would be pretty cool in my opinion, and a really great full circle moment for the series as a whole. Genuinely, I'm really curious what you think about this. I've never really made a JoJo theory before, and this is before making videos. I've just never really been involved in that type of scene in JoJo. I've always been involved in like main villain speculation, but this is like uncharted territory for me. Not even sure if this is already a theory, but nevertheless, this is just my thoughts. So I'm really curious what you guys think, if this has some potential or if I'm just rambling like a crazy person, because that is very possible, I'm not gonna lie. Before I actually end the video, I just want to thank everyone so much because we finally hit 2,000 subscribers. This is something I've been hoping for ever since the start of the year when we reached 1,000, and seeing this type of growth continuously going on, it's really, really great, and I'm so grateful for all the people who decide to stick around and listen to me rambling. So, with that, thank you all so much, and hope you have a good one.